Welcome to Galaxy Brains.
An infinite amount of cash.
I'm your host, Alex Thorn.
The U.S. banking system is sound and resilient.
Bitcoin made a new all-time high.
If you're not long, you're short.
Satoshi's going to come on there, laugh hysterically, go quiet, all Bitcoin's going to be erased.
Bitcoin's the best crypto out there.
Bitcoin is going to zero.
Welcome back to Galaxy Brains. As always, I'm your host, Alex Thorn, head of firm-wide research at Galaxy. Bitcoin not zero. We have a great episode for you this week. Thomas Pacchia, founder and proprietor of PubKey NYC, but now PubKey DC as well, which just is opening. Thomas is back on the show, I think, for his third or fourth appearance at this point. We tend to have Thomas on towards the end of the year. We had him on last December as well. Will be a really exciting conversation to hear about what PubKey's plans are to extend the Bitcoin ecosystem to Washington, D.C. We'll also check with our good friend Beimnet Abebe from Galaxy Trading, as always, to talk markets and his updated thesis for where Bitcoin's going in the near and medium term. Before we get to that, I need to remind you to please refer to the link to the disclaimer in the podcast notes and note that none of the information in this podcast constitutes investment advice or an offer, recommendation, or solicitation by Galaxy or any of its affiliates to buy or sell any securities. Hey, Phineas, we just interviewed with Beimnet a moment ago. We pinned him down on some good numbers for his thesis here. He's really holding firm to this 200-week moving average.
It's our job to press him and his job to stand firm on his.
He's been remarkably consistent.
He's been very consistent. He's a disciplined guy, but we pinned him down. I thought he was, we were like, look, well, what do you think now? We're up to 92.
Yeah, he's bearish below the 50-week moving average, and he's bullish above the 200-week moving average, or said another way, we're in a range between, in his mind, this bear market range between 200-week moving average and 50-week moving average. Those are his sort of back-of-the-napkin
Is
math.
it important to you to remind people that it's a 200-week moving average?
Yeah, it's a very long moving average.
Which means that it can get down to around 55K, and we're still in that cycle.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think part of his thesis, it's not purely technical, by the way.
Right.
I was explaining this to some people on Twitter, and they became critical, saying that, moving averages and technical analysis is not very reliable. That's not solely what he's relying on, but it's sort of a back-of-the-napkin way to look at the chart. The 50-week moving average historically, which is a 50-week long average of the price, very long, almost a whole year, has marked support for bull markets, right? I mean, you see it in 17, 21, 25, right? When the price comes down, it finds support at the 50-week, and that continues the trend higher, and we've lost that now, right? Which is it's about at 100K at the moment, and that's a marker, I think he's saying, So, and again, important, and he makes very well clear in this upcoming interview, but this is a tactical and short, medium-term question. He's not questioning the viability of Bitcoin as a long-term investment. In fact, is I think prepared to stack. The real question is, can the bulls, keep Bitcoin higher so Beimnet doesn't get to stack?
Yeah,
he's looking to stack lower, and I mean at 92, it looks okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm excited to have Thomas, who's sort of our resident Bitcoin well, you're our resident Bitcoin culture guy, but he's our resident Bitcoin culture guy.
He is.
And I feel like towards the end of the year, we always have him on, and he talks about, we do some technical stuff, but it's usually about what's happening in the wider cultural landscape of Bitcoin.
And he has, I don't know, it's his personality, but he has a very holiday vibe.
He does.
He's a very gregarious man. I mean, it makes sense. He's the proprietor of the world's best Bitcoin establishment. Well, it's going to be a good interview with Thomas. But first, everyone, let's check in with Beimnet Abebe. Let's go now to our friend Beimnet Abebe from Galaxy Trading. As always, Beimnet, welcome to Galaxy Brains.
Thanks for having me.
I love having you on the show. You took a little bit of a week off last week. It was Thanksgiving, and I think we kind of hit him with a bit of a sledgehammer the week before. We did a whole episode with you, sort of diving into your bear thesis. Obviously, you've been proven right for, I don't know, since mid-October. I mean, to be clear, I think you were calling for it to be lower before the, or right after the 10-10 crash, and possibly even before. Yeah. We've had a little bit of a bounce. I was asked by a reporter yesterday if a 20% bounce off the recent low meant that we weren't going into a bear market. I I guess conveniently for the story, inconveniently for bulls, pulled many examples of huge rallies while
Bear market
Bitcoin
rallies,
was dropping from the 50-week to the 200-week throughout 60% rally, 40% rally, but then still eventually reverted. What's your sense, before we get to the broader market, what's your sense of the Bitcoin price now? Does it alter your near or medium
No,
term
I
thesis?
mean, medium-term thesis is you're still in a downtrend, and there have been no signs to confirm that you are no longer in that downtrend. And so until you have confirmation that you're out of the downtrend, trend is your friend. It's
Yeah.
kind of my philosophy. And I think it's perfectly normal and healthy to see, corrections off of like support levels. And it also kind of did seem a little overdone.
Yeah.
The sell-off we had,
Down to
early
80.
this week.
Even high.
We
earlier
went
this
to
week.
84 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, on the back of like a illiquid weekend move that precipitated into the U.S. session. And so, these types of things don't tend to happen in bull markets, at least as frequently.
Yeah, random
Right?
like 92 to 84,
Correct. Right?
8K
And so
move.
I think it's symptomatic of the fact that we are in a bear market. And it's just another kind of piece of evidence that supports that view. I still think the bloodbath that you saw on Oct 10th, it's going to take more than, a month and a half to kind of get through that. You had 1.6 million traders liquidated, right? And so, they might be buying the dip, but they're buying the dip with less funds, right? And, I just kind of feels like you don't have that much in the way of catalysts, and markets need catalysts, and they need structural flow as well. And markets move at the margin. And so if these DATs are essentially done buying a lot of stuff, right, you don't have that marginal buy pressure coming from these DATs as aggressively. And then, you also have the fact that, the wealth effect from all these alts coming down tremendously. And then on top of that, you got tax loss harvest selling potentially in crypto-oriented securities.
Yeah, you made this point really well, I think, 2 weeks ago. You were saying that if you look at your portfolio, let's say you had some Bitcoin or some ETFs or altcoins or anything in a broader diversified portfolio, and you're looking at what you can sell to harvest some tax losses, is basically just Bitcoin. Stocks have been up. If you own gold, it was up. Right? I mean, it's one of the only things that really is down year to date. I mean, obviously single name equities here and there for sure, but for an asset class, crypto is pretty much the only one year to date that is down. You're not
Absolutely.
So if you want to harvest losses, there they are.
There they are.
Yeah.
And so it just leads to a very weird recipe where that lines up really well with the 4-year cyclicality of BTC. And in my head, it's the 50-week moving average that I'm closely following. And we're still below that. Yeah. And, historically, when we've broken that level, we have retested it before. And so, my view is until you see a weekly close above that level, bear market is still on.
Yeah, that's your simplest
My
barometer.
Rubicon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think you should trade accordingly, right? As long as you're in trend, what are you meant to do? Right? In trend, if it were an uptrend, you'd buy dips and sell. You buy dips and sell rallies. In this instance, you sell rallies. It's the same concept, really.
Yeah, it is. But it's in the other direction,
in
right?
the other
with
direction,
a short bias, basically.
With a short bias. And the way I'd like to think about it is it's a sell to buy market, not a buy to sell market. Right? In an uptrend, knowing that it's going to be higher, you can buy the dips a lot more comfortably. Right? In this instance, you can sell the rallies a lot more comfortably, right? And what I'd like to highlight, though, is that the main thing that people should be thinking about is there's no fundamental change in Bitcoin, right? There's been no fundamental change really ever in its history, right? And then in terms of the reasons people buy Bitcoin, self-sovereignty, preservation of wealth, purchasing power, etc. Those reasons have not changed. In fact, they probably argue for greater price appreciation in Bitcoin. And so, I feel like people just need to differentiate the fundamental case from what is happening structurally in the marketplace. And so, I think you're just at a point of price discovery, right here, right now, rather than where is this asset going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. right? And so, like, while we might be, bearish from a tactical and medium term perspective, like the long run, like if you're thinking in multiple year increments or 6 month blocks, like you're still in a reasonable place, and for all the Bitcoiners out there, like this is a great time to stack sats. Still, probably, right? But if you're trying to like extract the most value out of the marketplace, like it's probably or considering like what path is it going to take, my belief is that it's down before higher.
Yeah.
Right.
That would almost argue for especially given the other conditions in the market, at least, if we assume, knock on wood, that the AI demand continues, and I've explained many times why I think it will, then you're looking at S&P near all-time highs. I mean, we keep saying that. It keeps being true. Rallied really hard in November. At the end of November, equities did, to basically get just right to all-time highs. Metals look pretty good. Like, inflation looked right. What do we call it? Miss to the downside. Right. So like doesn't look too bad. And employment looks like Fed easing is going to come. I want to ask you about that. That would tend to be a great setup for Bitcoin and risk assets. So I was going to ask though, does that make your medium term view, the bearish trend, is it possible that it's shorter? Right. I mean,
it's totally
it doesn't
possible.
feel like we're headed into a multi-year crypto winter.
Not a multi-year crypto winter.
Yeah.
Definitely not. But what I think folks need to realize is that a lot of that optimism is baked in to the marketplace. Like retail's been buying for like a gazillion percentage of the last like 30 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. The rate curve is already implying like a pretty aggressive rate cut path, and we've already cut.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a floor to how much we can cut given like the underlying inflation trends in the economy. And so, and then in terms of like AI optimism, which is really what's driven, broader equity markets higher, like there's a lot that's baked in. Yeah. And, what I'm seeing is, signs for concern like every day in terms of how much optimism is really baked in, right? Take the headlines today that came out that Microsoft might be lowering its like AI related software targets. Maybe it's true. Maybe
it was something like what, that they wanted that people like the older software better or something
or
like that.
The demand for the newer software is less than expected.
Or the older software was fine.
Yeah,
it's working great. Or something. Yeah.
But there's just other signs, right? Like that the competition is heating up in like a number of different fronts, right? Like ChatGPT, OpenAI went into code red because over the last 2 weeks, they saw their daily active users decline by like 7%.
What does code red mean? I saw this.
Code red means that other models are winning market share.
Yeah, I see. But it's an internal term, or is that a generic term we should all be learning? I was wondering. I saw them declare this.
Yes, but
it was
but all it means is that like OpenAI, which is has privately raised money at insane valuations, and people already have doubts, in terms of like their ability to fulfill their commitments, right? There's a really high growth rate implied with that, right? Like it is AI is a growth phase, right? So when you start to see that, derivative of growth,
so
slowed
deceleration,
correct?
Yeah,
of the growth trajectory, right? Like that's gonna impact how people the valuation people put on things, essentially. Right. And then if you think about like a company like NVIDIA, who has like insanely high margins, and all of a sudden Google's now a competitor, Amazon's now a competitor, and there are other chip manufacturers that are coming in to kind of fill that place. Like what was the Jeff Bezos theories? Like anytime he sees a profit margin, like that's his to like compete for. Right. And so like you're seeing like intensifying competition, and that should probably lead to margin compression. Right. In every other market, that's what that leads to. Right. And so the question is like, are enough cracks emerging where people like kind of reconsider the thesis? Like potentially, like December's still a pretty strong month for equities, like historically from a seasonality perspective. You still have corporate buybacks that are like above like historical averages. And, apparently retail still does have a little bit of dry powder.
Yeah.
And you do have like the fiscal impulse from the big beautiful bill coming, but the question is like how much of that's baked in?
Yeah.
And like, is it really worth like, piling into equities here or broader risk, like when like the upside is like not quite as much as it was
I mean, this
6
is-
months ago, a year
Ray
ago.
Dalio had suggested that like about a month ago that we were in, fall 1999 when the blow off top for the .com bubble was in March 2020. So, I don't know if that transposed. Even if he's right, I don't know if it would transpose exactly. But that's the question. But he, I think the way he put it was, even if that is the case, you're meant to have light feet because most of the gains were made between January and March. The blow off top was the top you wanted to sell.
Correct.
If you missed that, you missed a lot of the gains. But I want to ask you this too. Obviously after like complete carnage in 22, then Jan 23, when everybody restarts their portfolio, their books and their year to date all resets, like was a phenomenal time to buy Bitcoin at like 15.5 or 16.5. Do you think we'll get a similar effect to start this year? I mean, it's down a lot. It's not out. It's out, to your point. It's not fundamentally. It's in the market structure is not destroyed like it was in 22. Might you find portfolio managers or investors who say it's a new year, let's get in at this lower cost basis and see what 26 has to bring?
I mean, if you're like, there's the whole dogs of the Dow theory, right? Where every year you're meant to buy like the worst performing like Dow names, and those tend to like do well over time. And so there is that element where if you look at macro asset classes, like precious metals have done well, commodities have recently started to do well, equities have done well, at least front end fixed income has done well. And so if you're thinking about like blocks of assets and like where there's value, like, yeah, I could definitely see like a macro type being like, oh, like this seems like the one.
Yeah, like Bitcoin's down but not out.
Yeah,
and it is down. Other stuff's not down.
Down but not out. But it's just like, at this point, like what is truly the catalyst though, right? It's not market access. Everybody's got the ability to buy
You just
Bitcoin.
saw you got Vanguard finally turn it on for their brokerage clients.
As if
Merrill
the big Vanguard clients that matter like didn't figure out a way to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, and people are saying like 11 trillion asset manager Vanguard turns it on. It's like, folks, they're talking about their brokerage platform, not their mutual fund and their fund complex. But yeah, I think that's a fair. Why buy it? Momentum is maybe the reason to buy it.
And it's
in that
always
situation.
been a momentum asset. And like, you just have to think about like there is this idea of reflexivity in like both directions in markets. And so like, like right now, like the reflexivity is to the downside.
It's like part of human condition, right? Everyone's, they turn sour. Yes. Not devastatingly so, but noticeably so. Yeah. And you're like, and maybe that's to your point about if you have a long-term view, that's the contrarian indicator. I think the question is the obvious question is how deep does this, if it is a bear market, as you say, how deep does it go? And how soon do we see that depth?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, my view is pretty consistent. Like, where I'm really going to buy the dip is at like structural support, which
200
is
week moving
200
average.
week moving average. If you want to take a stab like at the 100, like, maybe it's worth averaging in at that level. But like really, like when you're in a downtrend, like it's tough to trade counter trend, right? And like 85% of money, like or some crazy percentage of returns are made in trend.
Yeah.
Right. And so to think that you can make money counter trend is statistically like unlikely.
Yeah.
And what I do know for sure is that you are in a bear market and in a downtrend. We were at 125 like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Right? We have fallen dramatically.
So the 50 that would be to flip it back to support would alter your view.
Correct.
That's
So
like at
basically
100 or higher.
Around 100K.
And then the
sustained closes
200
above.
today is at around 55K.
Yeah.
I think
But it'll trend higher
Yeah,
over
your
time.
point was that like it's a rising line, so it's
Correct.
not like it nukes to. I mean, if it did, that'd be probably a great buying opportunity. But you're thinking more of the trend down, and maybe the price meets the 200 week in a bear scenario, like this summer or next summer, I should say. Yeah. Right over a few months from now, as it rises. So it ends up. I'm making this up with no math to support it, but in the 60 to 70K range, probably in a few months would be where it would hit that 200 week moving average, theoretically.
Yeah. It could be 6 months, it could be 9 months.
That's kind of your range of indecision, of bearishness. 55 to 100 right now.
Yeah.
Maybe 70 to 9. I mean, it compresses, right?
Yeah,
The 50 will come down. So it'll be 70, 70 to 95, 94.
Yeah.
Starts to be the range. So by the way, it's a pretty tight range
Yeah,
for
it
Bitcoin
is.
historically.
It is.
That's a nice To think too that even in your bear scenario, 55 is the floor. I mean look how far we've come.
Correct.
My gosh. I mean that's the other thing that I noticed during Thanksgiving. I don't know. I would like to add before we wrap. What was the reaction? Was there any from your friends and family over Thanksgiving? I know you were with them. How's the Bitcoin doing, or any questions about this? It's a very historic.
No, I
time.
mean, a lot of people asking like, is now a good time to buy? Right.
See, that's what we talked about last week, Phineas. That was my anticipation of what I would face. Not, oh my God, because there have been years where they're like, oh, you are a terrible investor, or maybe you're even a criminal. Yeah. Other times they're like, oh my God, he's a genius, and I was like, it was much more measured.
Yeah. No, I think people have just seen the market cycles of crypto, and like the volatility doesn't like phase them as much. But that's like, if you didn't have people asking that, then I would be giga bearish. Right.
They don't even
that's
care.
like a precondition
Like
to
meme.
a marketplace like even existing, that
Apathy.
there's willing buyers.
Yeah.
Right. And
it would be like that Don Draper meme, right? I don't
Yeah.
think about you at all. That would be very bearish.
That would be very
People were
bearish.
thinking about it.
People were thinking about it.
They're wondering.
Now the question is there really enough like to take people? I mean, just think about like all the competition you have for attention right now, right? You got meme stocks, rare earth metals, AI names. You now have the advent of prediction markets, and you've got sports gambling that is all over the industry.
And Bitcoin
now.
isn't even quite volatile enough to capture that old volatile day trader
correct.
mind share that it used to.
Right? Because like it's like, okay, I put a bet on it plus 200.
It's kind of like stuck in the rock and the hard place between the long-term value investors who believe in it, and there are many, and it's a growing cohort, and some of them use the ETFs, and the old school Bitcoin traders who were enticed by the volatility, right? They have the long-term ones, maybe I'm sure many may own it. Certainly we do, and I do, and many people own it in the ETFs. But they're also competing with, Mag 7 and other good long-term investment ideas. And then the volatility traders, there's more volatile things to trade that are more interesting. It's even not just in crypto, to your point, outside of crypto as well.
So
like the Robinhood traders aren't going on and buying Bitcoin typically.
Yeah, it's not that
like the
sexy.
GameStop crowd was buying it in 2020. They were gambling
at
on
lower
Bitcoin
base
stuff.
levels.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like in this interesting, it's like in the middle of the phase shift between low cap volatile and high cap long term.
Yeah. And my question to you, to flip it on you a little bit, I don't know if I've ever asked you a question on the show, but what do you see whales doing when you kind of look at, some of those on-chain metrics that you guys track? Like what's
there's been a lot of whale distribution, and I know some people don't like those metrics. They think that they're all altered by the ETFs and stuff, but in mass, I think you can. I think a good way to think of it is, think about not just whale, long-term investor, and statistically, most of the Bitcoin analysts use this 155-day line because you become statistically much less probable to sell after 155 days over the history of Bitcoin. Coin's much less likely to move over that period. And some people say, well, that's not nearly 100. That's not even half a year. It's not long enough. Well, just think about the average 6-month investor. They bought Bitcoin 6 months ago. Maybe they bought the dip in April, right? Went down to 74.5. Well, since then, if you just hodled and opened it up, you're only up slightly. I mean, the block clock is, I guess, offline at the moment, but you're only up slightly. Meanwhile, if you bought the equity dip, if you bought these other dips, like there's an opportunity cost to capital, of course. And so, I think whales they were distributing throughout the year. We've seen that come down a little bit now, I think, because, people that own a lot of Bitcoin tend to be smart and they want to sell into an uptrend, not into a downtrend that's selling into weakness. But I think there's real questions about, like, on a shorter term horizon, whale or not, where are you meant to allocate your capital? And if you bought Bitcoin 6 months ago, you're just up slightly. If you bought it a year ago, you're down. And you're looking like, what do I have to show for this 1 year of capital allocation, right? I mean, a loss when S&P's basically at all-time highs? It seems like, why are you trying so hard? And I think that's a reasonable question for people to ask. It'll flip, I think, at some point, and those are levels you're thinking about as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, Beimnet Abebe, my friend from Galaxy Trading, as always, thank you so much. Let's go now to our guest, Thomas Pacchia, founder of PubKey. Thomas, welcome back to Galaxy Brains.
Thank you. It's always good to be back.
I always love having you on. It's got to be your 4th appearance, maybe 3rd.
Yeah,
Definitely
3 or
3rd.
4.
I think it might be on 4.
Yeah, well, if we count the bus in Miami.
Well, then it's definitely 4. I forgot we did that episode. That was a
I
great
know.
episode. It was
Yeah.
you and Drew Armstrong.
It was so hot in that bus. We're all just like sort of like a little moist.
I was
and
very
exhausted.
exuberant coming back from that Miami. I remember because I asked Phineas. Remember, I had some B-roll footage. We put it up. I did a rap song about it. I said, Collins Ave loves me. I forget what the line was. It's like the main road in South Beach.
Yeah. I think it was me, you, and Drew Armstrong. That was
Yeah.
a fun one.
Yeah, it was fun. You had the PubKey
But it's always
bus.
good. This is my favorite podcast.
Well, that's very nice of you. And that was the last year in Miami. That was a great conference. That was that would have been like May 23 or so. You guys had the PubKey pop-up at Max Club Deuce.
yes.
That's a crazy bar.
So I actually just went back. So I was in Miami for the Cantor Conference a couple weeks ago, and Mac Club Deuce is my favorite bar in the world, even more so than PubKey. So we hosted our very first event at Mac Club Deuce for that conference. That was the first thing that we hosted, and then when we hosted President Trump at PubKey September of last year, I was like, "Do you want me to suit up for the president, or should I be like dive bar authentic?" And they were like, "Authentic,
Oh,
definitely."
like you asked your team?
Huh? Yeah, like
Yeah.
the advance. And I
Yeah.
was just like, how should we make this look? And they said, definitely go authentic. Like, you don't need to wear a suit. I was like, okay. So I wore a Mac Club Deuce members only jacket
Yes.
that says cash only on the front.
Yes.
So when I went back for the Cantor Conference, the guy saw I was wearing the orange PubKey hoodie, and he was like, "Oh, you're the guy." Just like rounds on the house. There.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, it was good.
I love that bar. One of the things that is great about it is, well, one, you can smoke cigarettes inside there. Very rare
Yeah.
in the United States.
Yeah.
But also great drinks. Very central location in South Beach.
It's great. It's the oldest bar in Miami,
yeah.
and it's just it's an institution.
It has this giant awkward bar layout, though. Wouldn't you knock out the bar and redo the bar?
No, the W is amazing.
It's so annoying.
It wastes a lot of space, but
Yeah.
the dynamic, it's really conducive. It's a great conversation bar.
Yeah.
Because you're not at the same table, you're at this big winding bar, and that's what makes it so special because
Yeah.
it really facilitates conversation.
There are a lot of bar seats because of how it winds, so it's like a lot. Whereas if it was straight across,
They only have the one TV or maybe two. Like, it's a classic dive bar. Where
Yeah,
you
it's
actually
really good.
Talk to people and put your phone away.
so that was the first, obviously non at PubKey NYC event. I mean, but you've done many since. One recently that I think was really notable was the show you guys put on in Las Vegas.
the Hot Style Takeover.
Hot Style Takeover
Yeah.
Vegas one.
Vegas and Nashville. We started
Yeah.
that in Nashville,
Right.
which ends up being, because it sounds like a hostile takeover, but
Hostile
I
takeover.
love Bitcoin Magazine. It's not hostile. It's just funny.
Yeah.
But we started that in Nashville. That was successful. Unfortunately, I couldn't be in Vegas last year.
You
I'll
were
be
at
in
the
Vegas.
Human Rights Foundation.
Yeah, there was the
in
overlap with the
Oslo.
two, and we do a pop up there as well for the activists. They're heavy days in Oslo, so you need to blow off a little steam.
That
at the
I
end
can
of the day.
imagine. I haven't been able to go yet, partly because I was in Vegas last year. I wanted to go. They won't overlap again this year.
No,
I'm
no,
told.
no. Yeah.
But so you weren't there, but I know Mike Germano hosted, and it was a little different though than the Nashville Hot Style. It had some overlap. There was some panels and stuff, and some roasting that was done that was quite funny, just like in Nashville. But also there were some like genuine sort of show aspects. The one that's really coming to mind, and you can see this. You guys published the video of the show. It was really great. Was Walker and Carla's bit where they're like a deranged couple that starts off like flirting, and Walker plays fiat currency and Carla plays Bitcoin, and they sort of took you through like every part of a relationship. Like at first, like he's hitting on her, and like because they're gonna get married, and then later they're married, later they're getting a divorce, right? And like it's very, I was dying laughing.
They were great. Yeah, we had that it was almost like the old guys in the Muppets. I forget their names.
Yes, the critics though that are up there.
Yeah, a little like interlude. There's a lot of show business at PubKey. I mean, even the launch party in DC, like it was a barrage. And thank you so much to Galaxy for stepping in and sponsoring all the entertainment. We had a lot of entertainment.
Yeah.
So the media house with the bar, the event space that we have in DC, there's just so much we can do with it, and we're gonna use it. Like, we have a lot of crazy
You
ideas.
got big plans. We'll talk about those in a sec too. But let's talk about the DC launch party. So you have. There is PubKey DC, a new restaurant in DC. It's not quite open yet, But
not yet.
You did that event. I guess now we're recording on Wednesday, December 2nd. That was what, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, just before Thanksgiving.
Yep.
The 18th.
And it was packed, and the place looked great. It didn't look like it was far from opening, right?
No, we're close. We're in the frustrating phase. We're waiting on permits, right? We're ready to open. But it's, the certificate of occupancy, health inspection, business license.
So it can operate as like a private club for now or something like that?
Yeah, private events. And we have to get caterers. We're not serving our food. We're not serving our drinks. But I really wanted to get something in before Thanksgiving. And we're ready, right? So hopefully December 8th, if not that, maybe the next Monday, the 15th.
I'm assuming that's the city of Washington, D.C. that does those approvals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go, Washington. This important cultural.
Yes.
But that was a great event.
We're trying to employ Washingtonians and get open for Washingtonians.
Exactly.
Let's go.
That was a great event. It's a really cool space.
Yeah.
And you guys made it look great, and it was well hosted. But it was also very well attended.
Yeah.
I saw you were speaking with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was there.
Yep.
Congressman Richie Torres I saw there.
Yep.
A smattering of government, Treasury, and
We had like
regulatory
30
officials.
people from Treasury, which is
I mean, those Treasury guys, they're busy, man. They got to blow off some steam.
I get it. But just like at the high level, having, Treasury really show up in force to the Bitcoin bar is, we've come a long way.
We really have. I couldn't imagine Janet Yellen and, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember who's the FinCEN guy. Whatever. The prior Treasury would not have been so inclined, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. Look, this administration is unique. It's definitely the first one that has a level of competency and understanding around the power and potential of Bitcoin from a lot of different levels, right? National security, protecting of the dollar, blah, blah, blah. So it is cool to see, and that's the focus in D.C. And D.C. is a little bit more event-driven. So in New York, it's a dive bar. It's 2,200 square feet. D.C. has dive bars, but, D.C. is more about summits, round tables, fundraisers,
cocktails,
things like that.
Meetings.
Yeah.
Surreptitious meetings.
Yeah.
Journalists meeting with leakers.
We're probably Palantir's probably already in PubKey DC at this point. So we found an amazing location. It's 12,000 square feet, so it's 6 times the size, and we have 2 bars, a full restaurant. There's going to be a classic American chop house on site. The headquarters for the Bitcoin Policy Institute, a podcast studio, a karaoke room, a bouncy
Podcast
castle.
studio looked nice, by the way. Was that where the DJ booth was set up back there behind glass?
Yeah, exactly.
It's very cool.
So you have the fish tank, and then Video Village is there. James O'Byrne DJ'd for us towards the end of the night. It's sick. We're allowed to. We can throw a lot of different looks because of the space.
Yeah, the space is quite large, and you have it's a double-sided bar. So there's plenty of bar space, classic bar space. But then you have a big open room that you can put tables in. Normal nights, a restaurant, you could put tables down. It's got a big stage. What was the cover band that played?
So it was Wild Bill.
No, not that one.
And then Parrotfish. Both from Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
They were both, but I just cannot get out of my mind as a dyed-in-the-wool millennial. Parrotfish was just pumping out the millennial bangers, dude.
Yeah,
Red Hot Chili
millennial
Peppers,
core.
Sublime, hitting
Modest
everything.
Mouse.
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah,
They're really good.
They are very good.
I was like, they even do the voices of the bands really well.
They're unbelievable, and it was perfect. We wanted something that was going to be fun. They're just a classic frat house cover band, and just amazing energy. We had the Lion Dancers because we're in Chinatown in D.C. So, a nod to the neighborhood. We also had Lion Dancers bless PubKey New York City. That's one of our things. Every party we throw has mariachi in some capacity.
You did have mariachi here, too.
This is the first time we had mariachi since the Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer mariachi meme that the administration threw. So we were a little nervous about that. But there's continuity.
I was there. I didn't feel that there was any sense that was the reference.
No, definitely not. Vibes were high. And we're excited to get open. It's going to be really interesting. And then on the media side, we're going to do the same thing in D.C. that we do in New York. So every Thursday in New York, it's free and open to the public Bitcoin programming, covering all aspects of the Bitcoin ecosystem, Bitcoin-adjacent topics, free speech, like we were just talking about when we had Preston Byrne. So Wednesday night in D.C. is going to do the same thing. And we're already starting to fill up that calendar. The Bitcoin Policy Institute is going to take one night a week. One Wednesday a month for something more policy-oriented. The Gemini series is going to be there as well. It's going to be exciting.
It's really an interesting. I think it's a great place to do it. There's so much happening in DC in Bitcoin and Bitcoin policy, and DC is a big city, so it's also ripe for it. Are we meant to expect now a PubKey in every big city? Or
every city except for Boston.
Yeah, why no Boston? This pains me as a long time.
No, I like Boston. I was up late one night and I was trying to...
I saw you said that.
Yeah. I was trying to come up... it was a good tweet. I was trying to figure out what city would be the most...
angry if you said that?
The highest potential to rage bait. And I was just like, it's Boston.
It's
and
definitely
it was.
Boston, especially for a New Yorker. And for a
exactly.
New York... headquartered. Do you have a head? Is the New York still the headquarters?
DC's so huge. We bookended, right? So I don't imagine we're going to get bigger. Like bigger than DC is going to be like a hotel or something.
It's a big space. It's a really cool space.
So we're bookended there. If we go to, I think Austin is a high value target for us because that's the podcast and comedy capital of America. That's good synergy with the media house side of things. San Francisco would be fantastic. Bitcoiners are everywhere. And there was a really interesting dynamic already in DC where in New York, at least, you have lots of companies, right? Galaxy is here, NYDIG, Coinbase. Everybody has offices here. Chain Code Labs has been doing BitDevs for a long time. There's enough of a Bitcoin community in New York where PubKey was additive, but in DC, there's really nothing yet. So we have people from all over the DMV area that are coming out of the woodwork. So in a way, maybe it's because PubKey NYC has been around for 3 years at this point, but the groundswell of support from the DMV Bitcoiners has been really just a pleasant and shocking surprise.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, and I see this on the internet as well, that they say like, "Oh my gosh, I've never made it to PubKey yet."
Yeah,
and you've now obviously created another touch point for them to be there first.
Yeah.
And it's a big region. There's a lot of people there.
For sure. And people roll through. There's lots of conferences. There's a lot of reasons for Bitcoiners to be there. On the policy side, the miners are in and out all the time. Galaxy's in and out all the time. Coinbase. So one of the things that we want to try to do, the big firms have lobbyists that they can pay, right? And they're in decent shape. They can host fundraisers. PubKey wants to look out for the end user, like the little guy, and make sure that some of these protections, if we're going to be writing laws and regulations on Bitcoin, we got to make sure that somebody's a champion for the end user, and I think PubKey slots into that nicely.
PubKey lobbying firm,
soft power.
I was going to say very soft power. Yeah, with a beer and a shot.
Yeah, taverns have been hugely important with this for a very long time. That's where Thomas Paine dropped off common sense. That was the dissemination of information mode at the time before newspapers.
Yeah, the Bell in Hand in Boston was where the Sons of Liberty met, which is
Green Dragon.
Those are in the Green Dragon. Those are the folks that dumped the tea in the harbor.
Yeah.
The Stonewall Inn for LGBTQ rights in New
100%.
York was like revolutionary meeting place.
Yeah.
That probably goes back a lot further.
Francis Tavern in New York.
There's probably like some communist Bolsheviks that met and smoked cigarettes and decided to do their revolution. I'm assuming.
This is old technology. We're talking about a couple of beers.
A couple of beers.
Couple of beers. Let's go overthrow the government.
Yeah, it's pretty common in old technology. I love that. So what can we expect in the next year that you might be willing to share? You said some big things coming, some wild ideas.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time. We got to get DC on solid footing. We're close to opening, and then when you open up a place like this, you don't know how people are going to flow through the space, training up staff, getting the restaurant out is going to be a big one for us. We're going for the lowest tier of fine dining. This is going to be a classic American chop house. And we're doing that intentionally. Like a dive bar is really accessible and approachable, irrespective of socioeconomic, status. We're shooting for something that's going to, invite the, broadest breadth of individuals to come and enjoy that chop house. So that's going to take some time. We're going to shift focus a little bit in Q1 back to the media house side of things. It's going to be a lot, right? 2 weekly events in 2 different cities plus podcasts. And that media house is the connective tissue across, all PubKey locations, just the 2 now. So we're going to tool that out a little bit, but we have a couple of cities that we're looking at for either like longer term pop-ups, like residencies, some international. Excuse me. My daughters are trying to get me sick. They may have succeeded.
Classic.
So we'll we'll start to attack sort of like the next location as soon as we feel like we're on solid ground in DC, and the media house is operating in both locations well. New York's kind of on autopilot at this point.
Yeah,
Like, it's kind of great.
Yeah, I used to try really hard to go a lot. Now it's just kind of like in my normal flow. Like I don't always go, but anytime I do, it's great. It's a go. Sometimes at obscure times, and it's a normal functioning good bar.
It's just a good bar.
Yeah, like I used to go like every Thursday. I got to do the Bitcoin programming and I still try to go, of course.
Yeah.
And it's continues to be great.
Yeah.
But on like a Monday afternoon, it's pretty good still too.
Yeah.
And the food continues to be excellent. I have to continue to praise the food. You do have a great. I know you have to sign up and buy a ticket, but the Danish Christmas lunch.
Yeah, so Away Slice, the guy that does a beefsteak that I've been rocking for the last 3 years as my uniform. I'll molt eventually. So Away Slice does a really special, tradition at PubKey. It's the Danish Christmas lunch. You got to take off work. It's a lot of
I was going to say, you said
really
you guys
food.
Posted something about this. It was like, he posted actually. I think. He was like, it's great. The food's amazing. The people are great. It's at an awkward time, and that's on purpose because you're meant to come to this great Danish lunch and step out for smoke breaks while you're supposed to be at work.
Yep.
And he's like, and that attracts the exact type of person we're looking for this lunch.
It's a fantastic community event. We launched the Mug Club. The Muggers are kind of like the social club within PubKey, the really like diehard
I'm
ones.
A member. Disclaimer.
Yeah. And bringing them together with these special things. I mean, tickets are still available. I think that it's an intimate event. I think only like 10 tickets are left. But it's special. And doing this 3 years in a row, Away Slice is a beast, and it's a cool experience.
I think I managed to go last year.
Yeah.
I've been once, and I think I missed the first one, which is why I made sure to stay.
You got to come this year.
I don't think I can. I'm not sure. I don't have a ticket.
Unacceptable.
I know. I'm going to think about it. If you look back, Thomas, at this year, because it's been quite I guess I don't want to go. We already talked to you after you hosted the president for his Bitcoin burgers.
Yeah.
But if we look just at 25 and everything that you guys have done at PubKey, what stands out maybe for events at the New York space? What stands out to you the most? Either specific events or trends that you've seen?
So my the most special aspect of PubKey has it's become kind of like a bad day place for people. Like a lot of folks that are regulars will go to PubKey when they're having a bad day because it turns it around. So that ends up being extremely special. Death in the family, like we've had those things, and that's always been very, very touching. The events continue to be incredible. Like the partnership that we have with the Human Rights Foundation pulls activists from all over the world to come in and share stories that don't get nearly as much attention as they deserve. So continuing that drumbeat has been really unbelievably special. Now that Bitcoin is on the political scene in a big way after the election and the current administration, we're getting a lot of inbound from politicians where this is really their first touch. PubKey is lighthearted, accessible. It's a perfect place to have hard conversations, to come in and ask, the questions that you would probably get bashed asking if you're on Twitter or something like that. So creating that environment and seeing that vision, come to life has been really special. And I'm hoping that we can make a lot of progress on the Democrats right now, because we are in an environment where, our favorite internet communication protocol is becoming a bit of a partisan issue, which is quite silly. So that's our top goal in DC and New York to help sort of bring a little bit of rational thought to the conversation.
You're talking about the bifurcation between like X.com and Blue Sky, like and on the internet, and so there's not a good meeting place now for the sort of the split American politic.
100% that. I mean, there's no real nuance or discourse happening across political spectrum. On X or Blue Sky. Blue Sky's wild. But no, it's also a bit partisan because, it's going to take 100, 200 hours of research for a policymaker to come up the curve and understand Bitcoin, its power and potential and promise and all that. So when you have party leaders saying Trump likes this thing, therefore this thing bad, that effectively buys a policymaker 100 hours in resources for the team, for the staffers and the interns and everybody else to dive into the issue. Yeah. So it's really effective. We want to be able to pull that apart because, I've said this a bunch of times. Saying that Bitcoin is Republican is like calling a hammer Democrat or like a table saw, libertarian. It's very silly.
Don't talk about a pitchfork or a shovel. I
Yeah.
don't know which ones those would be. No, you're right. It's a tool, right, in your mind. It's a utility. It's a nonpartisan, decentralized network. It's
Totally.
It's not inherently political.
It's a psychological mirror for a lot of people. You kind of see what you want to see in Bitcoin, right? There are progressive values embedded therein. There are libertarian values embedded therein. It depends on your perspective and how you approach the tool, the protocol, and you can kind of see whatever you want in it. There's something for everybody.
Let's talk about Bitcoin culture a little bit, which has been yet another interesting year in the Bitcoin land. I think, to what extent, I've got a couple interesting questions here, but to what extent do you think Bitcoin culture is now dominated by the plebs and the cypherpunks versus the suit coiners?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, with the ETFs and the treasury companies, miners, doing less mining, more interested in HPC. There is a lot of bandwidth, I guess, for mainstream media talking just about these treasury companies and the ETFs, BlackRock, and everything. The protocol falls apart without the individuals, without the nodes. That's where the strength comes from. So that's our primary focus. We cover the entire space with our with the media house side of things, but it's about the individual and what Bitcoin can do for a person, a family, a small business. It's nice that these things are happening. I mean, in a way, when governments and sovereign wealth funds and ETFs and treasury companies see the value in the thing, that's good. But I didn't get into Bitcoin for an ETF in my Fidelity account. Nothing against Fidelity, but cultivating the culture and really focusing on the individual, self-sovereign aspects of Bitcoin, I think is tremendously important.
Yeah, I think, and is it still alive? I mean, is it threatened by the rise of the suit coiners?
Well, we'll see. I mean, with centralization, most of the ETFs use Coinbase. It's not great, right? We would like to see a lot of different custodians in the mix here so that you're sort of decentralizing risk and not having these, centralized attack vectors. We're talking about Order 6102 a lot more than we were between, MicroStrategy and the ETFs. And Washington's now paying attention, which is good and bad, right, for a new technology like Bitcoin. It'd be a shame to see too much regulation stifle innovation because it still is very much an experiment. It's quite young.
Yeah, we'd like to see a government, Washington in particular, but a government act more like a Gandalf, shepherding the hobbits along and setting them off on their path. You don't want it to be the eye of Sauron pointing its eye on you as an industry or a protocol. And we're in the Gandalf phase, exactly, the Palantir. But yeah, there is that risk, right? I mean, I used to get this question about the ETFs all the time. People would ask me, like, are these bad for Bitcoin, right? And it seems like, and I don't believe that they are, but the fears that engender that question, frankly, I think are bigger than ever now with the DATs and the strategies and the governments.
Using the protocol is tremendously important, right? Like the way the protocol was designed, transaction fees have to take over for the block reward subsidy,
right?
And using the protocol is strengthening the protocol, right? More products and services to interact directly and not just offload it to Fidelity, JP Morgan, Coinbase, whatever. Is something that we need to keep pushing on because otherwise it's just another financial asset and it could be so much more than that.
So when I was last at PubKey, I did buy my beers with Bitcoin.
Oh yeah.
I was actually hanging out with probably my oldest best friend ever, from when we were 2 or 3 years old, was in New York, and I brought him to PubKey. And so, I don't always spend Bitcoin, but I used to, but I still do too. And so that payment flow that you have set up there, you guys built with Zeus, right? Which is
Zeus. Evan Kalutis stepped in and really got it done for us. It was tremendously grateful for
great,
him.
By the way. But I wanted to ask you, now that blocks, I guess that's what they're called, blocks, the Square terminal, has turned on the ability for, I guess, all of its U.S. merchants to accept fiat and receive Bitcoin, accept Bitcoin and receive Bitcoin, accept Bitcoin, a whole bunch of ways. Not that whether or not you guys would do it because your flow works great, but what as a merchant yourself that accepts Bitcoin, PubKey, what will be the impact of merely the option? Like, do you think? And then how does it step up? Is that really consequential? They are the largest payment terminal provider in the U.S.
The functionality is huge. It's not just for the payments. I believe merchants are able to toggle, like, okay, we receive credit card payments or cash payments.
Right.
I want this to
They can
automatically go into
stack.
Bitcoin.
I think it's like all the ways you can think of it. They can
Yeah.
receive it. They can take fiat and convert it. And, Yeah.
It's incredible. Like, more of that is kind of what we need to help, bolster what we were just talking about. Individuals using Bitcoin is tremendously important, whether that's the Lightning Network or Liquid or the base layer. More is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's quite something I've been waiting for years, to be honest.
Yeah, and there's frustration there too. I don't believe Block is able to activate in New York because of the BIT license. Other locations they would be able to activate for us.
You guys are accepting in a non-custodial way with Zeus, basically.
Yeah, so we have Zeus. We use Zaprite as the front end, Zeus for all the channel management, and Voltage for our nodes.
Yeah. So, and that's to your point, though, because custodial Bitcoin services in New York need a license from the New York Department of Financial Services.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's how. So there could be I wonder. Actually, it's quite interesting if the DFS doesn't. And by the way, Square Blocks has a BIT license. But when you have one, they do. They do. They know they do. But
do they
have to
really?
get every product approved. Yeah, you can buy Bitcoin on Cash App in New York, and they have it. But I believe DFS requires every single new product or new crypto, if you're like an exchange, to be approved. So if you log in on Coinbase today from New York, you only see a few assets, whereas they have every asset in the world, outside New York. So if New York, if Blocks has huge success, and merchants all over the country, ex-New York, are stacking Bitcoin, and there's all these great stories about how well they're doing and how they love Bitcoin. Do you think like a non-custodial, will Evan Kaludis have like tons of business in New York? Do you think it's possible that like New York could become the hub for non-custodial merchant payments?
That's
like a revolution against.
Yeah, look, I love that framing. In a way, the regulations really spur innovation, that try to deal with some of the wonky dynamics that they've created here with the BIT license. And there's also an issue with Lightning. I think that one of the problems is
that's
there's
the
a lot
thing
of
with
confusion.
Cash App. I can't use Lightning on Cash App, even though you can everywhere else. I don't know why, but I believe it's because the NYDFS has not approved that offering or something, which is obviously silly.
The routing of payments, I guess, triggers some money service business,
well, they think
concerns.
so, but we hope it doesn't.
Yeah. PubKey's a cul-de-sac. Like, we have a Lightning node, but our outbound would have to be like, 100 Bitcoin or something like that. So we only have the inbound, and there's a carve out. We haven't heard anything from the NYDFS.
I think you'd be fine again if it's because you're not offering it to clients, right?
Yeah, exactly. We intend to hold all the Bitcoin that's spent at PubKey.
Yeah, and you've in the past, by the way, offered a discount if you pay in Bitcoin.
No, both locations. DC's not open yet, but both locations, if you pay in Bitcoin, you get 21% off.
So you guys are bullish.
Yeah, very bullish. It's only about 7% of our transactions. If it ends up being 50%, we would probably have
maybe
to
we'll think about it. Yeah,
but so far it's so good.
It raises another interesting point because you were talking about accepting fiat as a merchant and converting a portion, but you could. And you're incentivizing people to pay in Bitcoin.
Sure.
One, because you want it.
Yeah.
But it also, say over Lightning, it's going to be cheaper for the merchant almost certainly than accepting a card swipe, which is what 2-3% they pay.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
You have to get to like tremendous scale to knock that. Like Walmart, for example,
they have a specific deal with Visa or whatever.
Yeah, but small businesses, you're talking about 3% for a lot of these terminals, a lot of these point of sales. Lightning is a no-brainer, and it's also, it's a good currency to hold in your reserve.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about Bitcoin culture this year. I would say, I hate to bring it up because I think it's very stupid, but probably the most potent and heated debate happening in sort of the Bitcoin ecosystem, Bitcoin community, like really, I'm not talking about the ETFs. I don't think ETF holders broadly know anything about this, but it's the debate over spam and how to handle it. And Bitcoin Core V30 was released by the Bitcoin Core developers, and it relaxed the op return field limit, I think rightly, in my view, under the theory that spam can't really be prevented, so best to siphon it into the least objectionable part of a Bitcoin transaction possible, which is the op return. That's given rise to the Bitcoin Knots movement, very vocal on social media. Do you have a take on this, just broadly, and maybe also as someone like yourself who's been in Bitcoin for so long? Can you give us some perspective on these types of debates that have happened in the past?
Yeah, so Core is the dominant implementation. It started with the Satoshi reference client, and it's evolved over time. We've had a lot of fights over the years around the block size wars and other things. This is a new iteration of that. I think that there are valid concerns on both sides. Knots is a fork of Core that's managed by a much smaller team, and they're trying to address an issue that they care deeply about. The Core team is the most robust, has the most resources. For a long time, I was working with Eric Voskuil in the LibBitcoin project because I would like to see more alternative implementations.
More client diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a good thing. And Knots, again, is a fork of Core originally. So
not even a full diverse client offering.
Yeah, the only one that would be a full teardown of the Satoshi reference client, or the one that's the closest, would be LibBitcoin. But we're talking about very deep in the technical weeds. It's hard to get funding for that stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's open source software development.
Yeah, this has been an important debate, though, in other crypto L1 communities. Like, for example, in ETH, you had Geth and Parity.
Yeah.
And people have argued for a long time that client diversity is really important for decentralization overall.
It is.
And it seems a bit like what the Knots people, one of the things that the Knots supporters or users are also arguing.
I'm very sympathetic to that. But I've been on that with Eric since 2017. I thought that was important, mostly because now we're in a world where it would be trivial for BlackRock or somebody to spool up an alternative implementation. I think it's better if it comes from the community. LibBitcoin was started by Amir Taki back in 2011.
It's an original core maintainer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Amir was one of the very first people, working on Bitcoin.
Also, by the way, I think fought in Syria against.
He's an interesting dude. Yes,
against the Islamist
against ISIS.
ISIS against ISIS.
He fought with the Kurds. Yeah.
He's crazy.
I think he showed up trying to help them with their tech stack, and they were just like, "That's really cool.
They're like,
here's
take
a gun.
This gun.
Yeah, we need you over there." Actually,
he's a very prominent and longtime libertarian activist. Generally speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is important to keep pushing these things forward because we're going to have alternative implementations coming out of it could be Facebook, it could be BlackRock, it could be anywhere, and it would be really good if it was coming from the community first and figuring out all the consensus issues that people are concerned about, and the reason why I think Core wants to sort of maintain their prominence as like keepers of the flame, but Bitcoin. I don't know. We were like the original no kings, at least in technology.
Do you think that there will be a thing? It is an American thing. And do you think there will be a consensus, like a fork, or
for Knots?
Yeah. I would even just say like for spam mitigation, that whole side of the argument.
I think it's good we're having the debate. I think that we're having the debate in a slightly too heated way. I'd like to see things calm down. It's a bit of a flame war right now. I don't think this is going to be similar to the block size wars where we had the fork with Bitcoin Cash. Back then there was a lot of institutional support for that. You had relatively big companies that were weighing in. Now they're sort of hands off with this one, at least at the moment. So I don't see it reaching that point. And forking off is hard, right? Making the wrong decision there. It's nice to get the dividends, but making the wrong decision there can be, ugly.
Yeah, if you sell the fork and hold the correct version that ends up becoming Bitcoin or staying Bitcoin, you do well. If you do what Roger Ver did, which I think what Jihan Wu did.
Jihan
in particular, I think notably sold all his Bitcoin for Bitcoin Cash.
I don't know if Jihan.
I don't know if it's all, but if you do that, it could end up quite bad.
Yeah,
and most of the ETF providers, maybe all, I don't want to say all because I haven't done a fine-tooth comb through all of their filings, but most of them put clauses in their
they reserve
their
the
filings.
Right.
Yeah, really just to decide at the later moment. None of them, I think, intentionally, because of lessons from the Bitcoin Cash fork.
Yeah,
none of them prescribe exactly like what the thresholds or criteria might be for them to decide which is the real Bitcoin.
Yeah,
they all basically formalized we're going to wait and see if it happens.
Yeah, that's the concern.
Yeah,
right. So if in the documents they are deciding on the behalf of their clients what the true Bitcoin is, and they have an alternative implementation for whatever reason, it could be legal risk, compliance reasons, It could be national security. It could be anything. So I'd like to see us figure out these issues internally before we test it. But no one's ever really prepared for war when it arrives.
You're a longtime New Yorker. Your business is in New York. There was a big election in New York for a new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, a self-described democratic socialist. How is a New York citizen, I don't know, raising your family here, but also even perhaps more relevant to this show, as a business owner, small business owner, do you expect Zohran Mamdani's mayorship to affect you?
I guess there's a concern, right? De Blasio was pretty similar, I would say. He wasn't as vocal about being a democratic socialist, but that was definitely in the background. New York is really resilient. I think everything's going to be fine in the long run. Raising taxes on small businesses like PubKey, is going to have a meaningful effect. Like, it's not like small businesses, mom and pop organizations are thriving in the current economic. PubKey's unique because of the Bitcoin community and everything, but you'll see a lot of businesses close if there's more pressure levied on them. He is doing some things that I like. He wants to streamline the permits and the licensing and make that easier. Like, you shouldn't have to go and talk to 7 to almost a dozen different, regulatory bodies if you want to open up a barbershop. We are experiencing that right now in DC. We experienced that here in New York. It is painful. And, you need to hire lawyers to navigate the process. And, the fines can add up if you're getting levied with these fines and these taxes. So that is a positive that I hope to see him make progress on. Some of the other stuff, I hope he comes in. Everybody's welcome at PubKey. It would be nice to talk to him about Bitcoin and what it can do for, New Yorkers and, the broader community. There are some touch points. Like I said, I think it is a psychological mirror, and there are some things that I think we can, spark his interest with if he were to come in.
One of the things somebody was pointing out to me is that FinCEN has just allowed or banned, I think, payment firms from facilitating firms from illegal immigrants. And as part of the crackdown this administration is doing on illegal immigration, do you think that there's a possibility that Bitcoin will become sort of widely adopted on the left as sort of the way the Canadian truckers did on the right as a reaction to that?
We've been talking about the remittance potential of Bitcoin for a long time. I think it's there. It's not as widely used as I think we thought it would be back in like 13, 14. When you look at Western Union or MoneyGram and the amount of money that they charge somebody sending money back home, these remittances, the remittance fees are astronomical on people that can't really afford to just take a 20%, haircut. With stable coins and Bitcoin, I think that there is a really compelling argument to make there as an alternative. And yeah, I think the surveillance state is a separate dynamic that there's a concern, in how that's going to be applied to Bitcoin and broader crypto. But that use case is still very much alive. And, Bitcoin's kind of there for anybody that needs it. Sometimes you like the First Amendment, sometimes you don't.
Yeah. Thomas, before we wrap here, two more questions. One, I wanted to ask you about Bitcoin mining. You've been long involved in Bitcoin mining.
Yeah.
You were on the board of a public Bitcoin miner. Hash rate has exploded this year. It's still, we're over a zettahash.
Yeah, it's wild.
It really is wild, especially given how many Bitcoin miners are either incorporating or fully transitioning to an AI or HPC use case, which you kind of alluded to earlier. Where do you see the future of Bitcoin mining going? Like, we've got this industrial scale publicly traded Bitcoin miner phenomenon in the U.S.
Yep.
There's plenty of private mining happening both at scale and at small scale. Do we hit 2 zettahash? I mean, next year?
Next year? No. Maybe. I don't think that quickly. It's certainly possible. It's exponential these last few years. It's been pretty wild to watch. I think the focus is still on new power, right? I think Sam Altman was saying we need more electrons. And the Bitcoin miners were on this.
Aren't there a finite number of electrons in the universe? Isn't that how energy works? I'm not sure, actually. I'm not
a Dyson sphere around the sun.
Something like, yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah.
So, Bitcoin miners have been helping with that all through COVID, around the China ban. Like, people, there was a shortage of the substations, for example, finding new electricity, new power sources to power the mines. so the miners were in a fantastic position to understand this, rush in demand for HPC.
Thomas, you've been an M&A attorney. You were a compliance official at Fidelity in Bitcoin. You've served on the board of a public Bitcoin miner. You've long been an investor, and I think you had a fund at one point as well.
Yeah.
An activist crypto fund, if I recall, which was interesting, very early ahead of its time.
It didn't work. It worked out. That strategy, we pivoted to mining. That strategy is hard to execute.
Yeah, and obviously you and your wife Megan and other partners and investors have created and launched PubKey, now both in New York and Washington D.C. What is would you be surprised you're 21-year-old self out of college or out of law school where you've ended up, and what does a day in Thomas's life look like?
Oh God, I'm quite tired. Yeah. So we had Eric Kaysen at PubKey a few weeks ago, and he and I got into Bitcoin around the same time. And I think that class of Bitcoiners, I call them the rescue dogs. It was kind of, the 20s were a little bit aimless, I would say, for me. I went down the legal path. I was at Cadwalader as a swap and derivative lawyer. And it just wasn't
swaps and derivatives, not M&A.
Yeah. That's okay. It's all
whatever.
It's all legal slop. But it's surreal. Like Bitcoin found me at a time in my life where I wasn't really sure. I was pretty confident that I didn't want to just I wasn't the best fit for a legal career. So very grateful to find this thing, and I think that that rescue dog class, we have a big responsibility. And millennials in general, millennials are the only ones that remember before the digital era and actually know how computers work. I think Gen Z is a little bit more, the app doesn't work, I need to buy a new phone. Like we tinker a little bit. So I think there's a lot of responsibility. I think that we're sort of, carrying the torch right now before we pass it off to the next generation. My goal is to foster culture and community for Bitcoiners and for pre-coiners to come in and have an environment where they can learn about this thing and how it can help their lives and their families. And then after that, I don't know. My wife says she's going to divorce me if I run for office, but we'll see.
Well, there you have it. Thomas Pacchia, lawyer, compliance official.
Yeah.
What's the PodConf thing? Compliance is defiance.
Bar guy.
Bar guy, owner, proprietor of PubKey.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on Galaxy